The sun turned the stones of the red keep to molten gold, and the air above the yard shimmered with heat. The crowd was already roaring. A sea of faces pressed against the walls, leaning over galleries and balconies like barnacles clinging to a hull. Dornish orange flashed here and there amidst the Lannister crimson and Baratheon black, but most of the color came from the faces themselves, flushed with wine, sweat, and anticipation of blood. Oberyn Martell flexed his bare toes against the hot sand and felt the faint sting of grit. The world narrowed to the circle of the yard, to the scent of dust and oil and steel, to the taste of spearmint and the faint metallic tang that clung to the underside of his tongue. He could feel the poison humming in the grooves of his spear, each notch on the darkened steel a promise. Across from him, Ser Gregor Clegane loomed like a walking wall of steel. The mountain moved with ponderous certainty as squires buckled the last leather straps and slammed the great helm down over his scarred head. Sunlight slid over his plate and pooled in the hollows like molten silver. Oberyn watched him as a dancer watched a clumsy partner, storing every imbalance, every hesitation. Tyrion Lannister stood off to one side, shackled, a pale island in the midst of helmed Lannister guards. Even from here, Oberyn could see the tension in the dwarf's shoulders, the way his eyes flicked between Oberyn and the hulking knight who had murdered Elia and her children. There was fear there, yes, but something harder beneath it. Resentment, resolve. The same bitter wine Oberyn himself had drunk for half his life. "You do not have to do this," Ellaria Sand had told him last night, her hands tracing old scars along his ribs. "You could return to Dorne and raise an army instead. You do not have to bleed here, in their city, for their twisted justice." "I am not doing it for their justice," he had said and kissed her fingers. "I am doing it for Elia." Now, in the yard, he could feel Ellaria's eyes upon him. He did not look up. He did not need to. He could sense her as surely as he sensed the sun. Oberyn rolled his shoulders, letting the crowd fall away. Let them chant. Let them scream. This was not their fight. It was Elia's and Rhaenys and little Aegon's. It was Lyanna Stark's, though the North might not yet know it. It was every child crushed beneath a noble's boot. The spear in his hand felt light, an extension of his will. The king's guard stepped forward to speak, but the murmurs died before the man could raise his voice. The Lord Hand's presence did that as well as any herald. Tywin Lannister sat beneath the royal canopy with the easy stillness of a man who believed the world would arrange itself to his liking. His green eyes were flat coins in a stone face. "You stand accused," the White Knight intoned, "of the murder of King Joffrey Baratheon. How do you answer these charges, Tyrion Lannister?" "I demand trial by combat," Tyrion said, his voice surprisingly clear in the heat. "As is my right." They had played this part already. Tywin's mouth thinned. Cersei's lips curved. Oberyn's own smile was a bare flash of teeth. "I will be your champion," Oberyn had said that day, watching the dawning surprise cut through the dwarf's despair. "I have a taste for Lannister justice." Now there was nothing left but the doing. The king's guard raised his hand. "Let the gods decide. Ser Gregor Clegane, you fight for Queen Cersei and for the crown. Oberyn Martell, you fight for the accused. Begin." The mountain lumbered forward, sword gripped in both hands, each step pounding a dull drumbeat into the yard. Oberyn did not move. He listened to that rhythm, measured the length of the man's stride, the reach of that great sword, the likely angle of his first swing. "Ser Gregor," Oberyn called out, letting his voice carry, letting the crowd hush itself around his words. "You raped her. You murdered her. You killed her children." He began to walk, slow as a stalking cat, spear trailing in the sand behind him, leaving a thin furrow. The mountain turned, helm swiveling, trying to track him. "You raped Elia Martell," Oberyn said. "You murdered her. You killed her children." The name Elia rippled across the yard like a stone tossed in still water. It struck the Dornish contingent hardest. He could feel their eyes burning like coals on his back. The mountain growled, a low, animal sound that barely made it through the steel of his helm, and charged. Oberyn smiled and moved at last. The first blow came in a blur of steel. The great sword hissed through the air, a horizontal stroke meant to take Oberyn in half at the waist. He was already moving, feet gliding, torso bending, the world slowing around him. The wind of the blade kissed his chest as he spun past, spear flicking up to tap the joint of Gregor's cuisse with a sound like a fingertip against a bell. The poison went in there, the first taste. A scratch, nothing more. Enough. You raped her, Oberyn sang, turning the words into a taunt, into a rhythm. You murdered her. You killed her children. The mountain roared and struck again, a vertical chop that would have split a warhorse's spine. Oberyn stepped aside so lightly it was as though he floated on the heat. The great sword bit deep into stone, sending cracks skittering out like spiderwebs. Fight, you coward! Cersei's voice, shrill and furious, cut through the crowd's roar. Kill him, Ser Gregor. Oberyn laughed, circling. Is that what he did in your service, your grace? Killed women in their beds? Killed children as they cried? The great helm snapped toward him. Oberyn lunged, spear licking out, not toward the center mass. Never where a man expected, but toward the exposed gap at the back of the knee where plate met mail. The spear point kissed, slipped, found purchase. Gregor staggered, bellowing. Another scratch, another drop. The crowd was shrieking now, the line between horror and delight blurred. Some shouted for the viper, some shouted for the mountain, most simply shouted. Tyrion stood utterly still, eyes locked on Oberyn's every movement, as though trying to memorize the pattern of his survival. The mountain recovered with brutal speed, wrenching his leg free and pivoting into a charging thrust, sword aimed squarely at Oberyn's heart. The Dornish prince backpedaled, spear darting to the side to meet the blade and knock it offline. Steel screamed. The force of the impact rang up through his arms, jolting his bones. Gregor's strength was monstrous, even hampered. He gave ground, foot by measuring foot, always moving in an arc, never in a straight line. Let the brute tire himself. Let the poison work. Heat shimmered in the air between them like a curtain. Sweat ran down Oberyn's spine, beating along his brow. He was aware of every sensation. The rasp of his breathing, the grit underfoot, the slight hitch in Gregor's movements with each new scratch. You raped her, he said again, softer now, meant more for the man across from him than for the crowd. You murdered her. You killed her children. Say it. Say her name. The great sword came from below this time, an upswing aiming to disembowel him. He leapt. For a heartbeat he was airborne, spear extended, cloak snapping. The blade tore through the trailing edge of fabric as he passed over it, and he landed in a controlled roll, coming up behind Gregor. The mountain turned too slowly. Oberyn's spear lashed out and drove hard into the back of his thigh, finding the gap at the hamstring. The crack of punctured mail was followed by a roar of pain that shook Oberyn's teeth. He wrenched the spear free and danced away before the backswing could catch him. The tip of the great sword grazed his ribs as it passed. He felt the sting, hot and sharp, and knew it would bleed. His own blood joined the dust in the air. Good, he thought distantly. The gods like trade. The crowd's cry crested. Ellaria's voice rose above the rest for a moment, raw with fear and fury. Oberyn! He did not look at her. He could not afford to. He felt the warmth of his own blood sliding down his side, the cut not deep enough to worry him yet. The mountain limped now, one leg dragging a fraction behind the other. Each breath Gregor took rasped within his helm, harsh and uneven. Oberyn rolled his wrist and set the spear spinning, wood and steel a blur of motion in his hands. Ser Gregor Clegane, he said, clearer now, each word a nail driven into the silence between the crowd's gasps. Did you rape Elia Martell? Did you murder her? Did you kill her children? The mountain lunged again, more recklessly. Oberyn sidestepped, letting the brute's own momentum carry him forward, and struck. The spear point crashed against the joint beneath Gregor's arm, where plate gaped as he raised his sword. Metal shrieked, then parted. The spear went in half a foot. Gregor howled. Oberyn twisted and dragged the spear free, dancing back, always out of reach. Blood streaked the greaves and pooled beneath the mountain's planted boots. It was darker than Oberyn had expected, almost black in the harsh sunlight, spreading sluggishly over the pale stone. Each drop carried his vengeance in it. The poison he had mixed himself. Long nights in Sunspear bent over glass and fire, whispered recipes from old maesters and older assassins. The mountain's breathing was a ragged grind. Each exhale came with a wet rattle. He was still dangerous. A crippled boar could still gut a careless hunter. Oberyn knew better than to step within those long arms, within the arc of that massive blade. Remember, he told himself. Remember why you came. Not to die and feed their spectacle. To live and bring truth out of this yard. He had seen death in pits and palaces. He had seen men so certain of victory that they rushed in for the final blow, eyes on glory instead of on the edge of the enemy's knife. He had mocked them once. He would not become one. Gregor swayed, then dropped to one knee. The motion shook the ground. The greatsword's tip dug into the sand and stone like a flagstaff. For the first time, the mountain looked small, not in truth, never that, but diminished. Fallible. The crowd caught the shift with animal instinct. Their roar tilted, rising into something else. Wonder, disbelief, the dizzy thrill of seeing a monster bleed. Across the yard, Tywin Lannister's fingers tightened on the arm of his chair. Oberyn's keen eyes caught the motion. Cersei's mouth hung open. Mace Tyrell blinked stupidly, as though he could not quite calculate how this might affect his prospects. Tyrion had not moved, but the lines of his face had changed. Hope was a dangerous thing, Oberyn knew. It made men reckless. It made them idiots. For Tyrion, chained and powerless, it made him taller. The dwarf seemed to straighten, as though some weight had shifted from his spine. "Say her name," Oberyn said, letting his own voice drop into a lower register. He took a step closer, but only one. His spear remained extended, the point unwavering, aimed at the narrow slit of the helm with casual threat. "Elia, say it." Gregor coughed. Blood spattered the inside of his visor and dribbled through the breathing holes. His free hand trembled, fingers splayed on the stone. The poison was in him now, racing along veins, chewing at the dark meat of his heart. "I know. You." The mountain-graded voice distorted by steel and blood. "Dornish whore's brother." The crowd hissed at that, some laughing, some jeering. Oberyn merely smiled, steady and amused, as though he stood in a brothel garden listening to bad poetry. "I am Oberyn Martell," he replied. "Prince of Dorne, brother to Elia. You raped her. You murdered her. You killed her children. Tell them." He flicked his spear toward the watching nobles with a tiny gesture. "Tell them here, before gods and men." Gregor's head lolled, helm scraping as he tried to track the sound. Muscles bunched in his shoulders, in his arms. A dying beast, Oberyn reminded himself. A dying beast still had teeth. He did not move in. He did not reach for the helm. He did not offer a hand, a kick, an opening. "Enough," Cersei snapped, rising. "Kill him, Ser Gregor. End this." "Obey your queen," Oberyn said, sweet as honey. "Tell them what you did, then die." Gregor groaned. His hand slipped on the sword hilt, then clamped again. The mail beneath his arm was soaked, the steel dark and slick. His leg trembled under his weight. Oberyn could see the tremor from where he stood. "He does not need to speak," Tywin said suddenly, his voice cutting cleanly through the noise. He had risen too, though more slowly than his daughter. "He fights for the crown. That is all that is required. Finish him, Ser Gregor, and this ends." Oberyn laughed aloud. It startled some in the crowd. Laughter was not what men expected from the brink of death. "You see?" he called. "He fears your words more than your sword, Gregor. He fears what you might tell them about Rhaegar's children, about my sister, about the orders given in the sack of this city. Does he think you cannot speak with half a lung left?" The mountain's helm turned toward the hand. Oberyn saw the faintest flicker of confusion there, the slow churn of a dull mind trying to pick between voices. His breath rattled again. His shoulders heaved once. Elia, the mountain slurred, mispronouncing her name, making it a grunt. She screamed, "The babe!" The yard shuddered with the intake of hundreds of breaths at once. Tywin's face went hard as old bone. Cersei's hands clenched on the railing. Oberyn tightened his grip on the spear until his knuckles whitened. Every instinct screamed at him to close the distance, to rip the helm from Gregor's head, to pound his face into the stone until nothing was left but pulp. But he remembered the crunch of a skull under brute hands. He remembered shattered teeth, spilled brains, the way a man's last curses were lost in the ruin. "Not mine," he thought fiercely. "Not today." "Louder," he said. "Let them all hear you." The silence that fell upon the yard was thick enough to taste. Even the gulls circling above the Red Keep seemed to pause in their squabbling. Wind tugged at banners, but their flapping was swallowed by the stillness below. Gregor Clegane's labored breathing rasped against that hush. Oberyn watched the big man's chest heave, armor rising and falling like a bellows. The spear did not waver. He held it as he might hold a lover, firm, sure exactly where he wanted it. "Say it," Oberyn murmured. "Say what you did to her. Say what you did to the children." Gregor's fingers spasmed on the sword. His gauntlet hand slipped, leaving a smear of blood on the leather-wrapped hilt. Pain, poison, and that slow, stuttering mind wrestled with one another. A lesser man might have pitied him. Oberyn felt nothing but a cold, clean hunger. "Elia," the mountain croaked again, voice thick. "Martell. I ripped her." A gasp rolled through the crowd like wind over tall grass. Oberyn saw men in Lannister crimson flinch as though struck. Someone in Tyrell green made a sign to the seven. One of the sand snakes, Obara, by the flash of her jaw, let out a wordless, strangled laugh that was half sob. "Go on," Oberyn said, voice almost gentle now. "Tell them." Gregor coughed. Blood bubbled, splattering the inside of the helm and dripping in scarlet beads from the edges. "Killed the whelps," he managed. "Smash their heads." Oberyn's world narrowed to two things: the words, and the way they seemed to echo in the stone, and Tywin Lannister's face as he heard them. The hand's mask of control cracked, just a hairline fracture. A tightening around the eyes, a slight flare of his nostrils. "Enough." "There," Oberyn said softly. "Now they all know." He shifted his grip, not to lunge in, not to close, but to draw back a single step. The crowd muttered, puzzled. They expected a rush. They expected a killing blow and a triumphant roar. Instead, the Red Viper retreated a pace, spear still leveled. "Ser Gregor Clegane," he called, loud enough for all. "You have confessed to the rape and murder of Elia of House Martell and the murder of her children, Rhaenys and Aegon. You have done so before the gods, before the crown, and before the eyes of King's Landing." He let his gaze sweep over them, making them complicit witnesses. "Let it be remembered." "Enough," Tywin said again, harder now. "Ser Gregor fights for the Queen. His words are the ravings of a dying man. Kill this Dornish fool and be done." Gregor tried to move. Oberyn saw the moment when his body betrayed him. The mountain's muscles bunched, seeking the strength for one last lunge, one last swing of that monstrous sword. His wounded leg buckled instead. The poisoned blood slowed in his veins, turned thick as pitch. His arms shook. He still managed to heave the greatsword up, though inch by stubborn inch. A beast would die as it had lived, fighting. Oberyn did not wait. He stepped sideways, always outside the line of the blade, watching the pattern of Gregor's struggling lift. When the greatsword reached its apex, trembling, Oberyn struck. The spear darted forward in a blur, not at the chest, not at the helm, but at the armpit where plate yawned over the pool of gore he had already opened. The spear point punched through metal, flesh, and lung with a wet, tearing sound. Oberyn felt the resistance, then the sudden awful slack. He pushed until he felt the ripple of the man's spine. Gregor's roar broke off in a gurgle. The sword fell from nerveless fingers, crashing to the stones. The mountain slumped forward, impaled, armor clanging as he sagged against the shaft. Oberyn jerked the spear free and danced back, out of reach of any flailing death throes. None came. The mountain had reached his last breath. He toppled sideways like a felled tree, shaking the yard. The helm struck stone and rolled with a hollow clang, tearing free from its leather straps. For the first time, the crowd saw the man beneath the steel. His ruined face, his bulging eyes, the blood that bubbled at his lips. No one cheered at once. The hush held, stunned and disbelieving. Then one Dornish voice cried out, "Elia!" and another shouted, "Dorne!" and the yard erupted. The sound was a physical force, washing over Oberyn in a hot wave. He stood very still, chest rising and falling, spear dripping poisoned blood, and let the roar pass through him. Tyrion was staring at the corpse of the man who had killed his niece and nephew, who had served his father's quiet orders. When his gaze lifted to Oberyn, it held something like awe. "Victory!" announced the king's guard, voice cracking a little under the strain of shouting above the crowd. "Victory for Oberyn Martell, champion of Tyrion Lannister. The gods have spoken." Oberyn did not raise his spear in salute. He lifted it only as far as he needed to plant the butt in the stone, claiming the ground his enemy's blood had darkened. The poison gleamed black along the steel. His side throbbed where Gregor's blade had grazed him, wet warmth seeping down to his hip. Ellaria's face swam before his vision, blurred by distance and heat. He thought he saw tears on her cheeks, thought the world was hazy at the edges. It had been a long, hot dance. He looked up at Tywin Lannister. The hand's mask was back in place. Only the tightness of his jaw betrayed him. He inclined his head the barest fraction, the acknowledgement of a man who had lost a piece in a game he had expected to win easily. Oberyn smiled at him. Then the yard tilted sideways, and the sunlight went strange. The ground came up to meet him, unforgiving as always. Oberyn felt the impact distantly, as though his body were something separate, a puppet's shell around the bright, astonished core of him. The spear slipped from his fingers. The stone was hot beneath his cheek. Dust filled his mouth, dry and bitter. For a heartbeat, he thought the mountain had struck him after all. Some final, spiteful blow. But there was no new pain, only the flare along his side where steel had kissed flesh earlier, the deep ache in his legs and shoulders from exertion. His heart pounded like a trapped bird. "Oberyn!" Ellaria's voice speared through the roar. Her footsteps hammered the stairs, sandal slapping stone. Hands were on him then, too many, too rough. Someone grabbed his arm, another his shoulder. He tasted panic on the air, sour and sharp. Dornish words tumbled over each other. "Prince, my lord, he is bleeding. Do not touch the spear," Oberyn managed, his tongue thick. "Poisoned." He tried to push himself up, but his limbs trembled. The yard seemed to sway. Sweat stung his eyes. He blinked, and the sky fractured into shards of blue and white. "Clear the yard," Tywin's voice commanded above him, hard as a boot heel. "The combat is done. Remove the corpses. Bring the prince to a maester." Ellaria dropped to her knees beside him, heedless of her silks, heedless of the blood staining the fabric. She cupped his face in her hands, thumbs stroking along his cheekbones. "Oberyn, look at me," she said. "Look at me, you fool. Breathe." He tried to obey. The air felt thick as honey. Each breath shuddered in, slow and reluctant. His side burned. He turned his head with effort and saw why. The cut at his ribs was longer than he'd thought. The torn fabric peeled back to reveal a gash oozing steady crimson. Not deep enough to kill him quickly, but enough to drain him if left untended. A smear of darker, oily blood streaked the skin around it. For a moment, cold crept into him. "Give me wine," he said, "and water, and a needle. Pycelle will tend you," a smooth voice interjected. Oberyn rolled his head again, finding Lord Varys hovering at the edge of the circle. hands folded within his sleeves, expression as mild and unreadable as ever. "The Grand Maester will be summoned to your chambers at once," Varys continued. "We must clear the yard, Prince Oberyn." The Queen can choke," Ellaria snapped, her nails dug into Oberyn's jaw. "He needs help now." Oberyn managed a ghost of a grin. "That's my Ellaria." The Dornish men lifted him carefully, as though he were made of glass. Pain shivered from his side with every jolt, but he clamped his teeth and rode it. The world blurred as they carried him, the roar of the crowd fading into a distant storm. Someone chanted his name. Someone spat at him. A woman wailed, whether in grief for Gregor or in uncertain terror of what his confession meant. Oberyn did not know. They passed close by Tyrion Lannister. For a moment their eyes met. Chains clinked as Tyrion stepped forward as far as he could, guards restraining him. "You won," Tyrion said, voice hoarse with disbelief and something like wonder. "For today," Oberyn replied. His voice sounded far away to his own ears. "Do not waste it. Your Grace," the King's Guard proclaimed somewhere behind them. "By the law of gods and men, Tyrion Lannister is—" The doors of the yard swung shut. Oberyn's world narrowed to corridors, heat, the thud of boots, the faint tang of incense as they passed a sept. The murmur of servants pressed against walls as the Prince of Dorne was carried by, bleeding and victorious. The chamber smelled of sand and oranges, despite the city. Oberyn had insisted on that when they'd given him rooms in the Tower of the Hand. Dornish rugs lay over the cold stone floor, and tapestries from Sunspear hung over the walls, showing Nymeria's 10,000 ships aflame and the Rhoyne's green waters choked with smoke. He lay on a bed draped in pale silk, stripped to the waist. Candlelight painted his skin in amber and shadow. The gash along his ribs had been cleaned, the blood washed away with stinging wine. It puckered now beneath a neat ladder of black stitches, each knot a small imperfection in otherwise smooth flesh. Pycelle bent over him, the old man's breath sour with mint and rot. His fingers prodded at the bandage with what he no doubt thought was delicacy. "You must rest, Prince Oberyn," he wheezed. "That was a grievous wound. It is fortunate Ser Gregor's blade did not penetrate deeper. Another inch and I would be dead," Oberyn finished. "Yes, Grand Maester, you have said so thrice already." He reached out and flicked one of the leeches in the basin by the bed. It writhed in the dark water, bloated and obscene. "You are not putting those on me. Leeches are a proven remedy for draining strength from men already weakened. I have seen them work their miracles," Oberyn said dryly. "You will not bleed me. If you must do something, brew more of that willowbark tea. I prefer a clear head when I speak to lions." Pycelle bristled, jowls quivering. "I am the Grand Maester of the... and I am the man who killed your queen's favorite monster." Oberyn's eyes hardened. "I have no patience for quibbling. Go." The old man hesitated, then gathered his dignity like a ragged cloak around him and tottered toward the door. "I will return in the morning to check the wound," he muttered. "Do not exert yourself. The poison on your spear was potent. We must be sure none entered your own blood." "We must be sure," Oberyn echoed softly. Indeed, the door shut behind Pycelle. The Dornish guards outside shifted, their shadows moving under the sill. Ellaria released a breath she had been holding. "You provoke him on purpose," she said, eyes dark with a blend of anxiety and admiration. "It is like watching a man tease a viper." "Am I the viper or is he?" Oberyn asked. "Both. And I do not want either sinking their fangs into you while you are weak." He turned his head to look at her. She sat close, one leg tucked beneath her, the other dangling from the edge of the bed. Her hair was loose, a dark curtain over one shoulder. Blood had dried on her skirt where she had knelt in the yard. She had not changed. "I am not weak," he said, though his body ached, and a bone-deep fatigue pulled at him. "Tired, perhaps. A man is allowed to be tired after killing a mountain." "You nearly let the mountain kill you," she said sharply. If you had gone in when he first fell, you could have ended it quickly. You toyed with him. I tested him, Oberyn replied. I needed his confession, Ellaria. I needed it spoken aloud, in front of Tywin and Cersei and half this wretched city. You needed vengeance, she corrected. You got it, but you almost gave them your life in payment. He smiled faintly. Vengeance worth having always cost something, but I chose what I paid. I did not give them my skull. She shuddered, remembering. He knew she was remembering. The stories, the whispers of crushed heads and spilled brains. She caught his hand and pressed it hard against her chest, as though to anchor him. Do not speak of that, she hissed. Not here, not where their walls might listen. He laced their fingers together, feeling the fine bones of her hand, the strength there. Very well, let us speak of something else. Tyrion Lannister, for instance. Her lip curled. Your little lion. Do not tell me you have grown fond of him. Fond? No. Oberyn thought of the man's bitter wit, his unexpected kindness, the weary intelligence in his mismatched eyes. Interested, perhaps. He is not blind to his father's sins. That is rare among their kind. He is still a Lannister. So is the coin I mean to take from Casterly Rock when the time comes, Oberyn said. We do not reject every tool simply because it is stamped with a lion. Ellaria frowned. What if Tywin ignores the trial's outcome? She asked. What if he finds another pretext to kill his son? Would you still call it victory? Oberyn's gaze shifted to the latticed window, where the last smear of sunset painted the sky in red and gold. If he does, he reveals himself to the realm as a man who scorns the gods' judgment, he said. And I will have Gregor's confession witnessed by hundreds. Dorne will know. The Reach will know. The Vale will know if I whisper in the right ears. The North, he broke off, inwardly tasting the name. The North. He had seen a Stark girl on the dais, pale and quiet, eyes like frozen water. He had seen the forced stiffness of her courtesy. He had watched the way she flinched when Joffrey moved too quickly. That girl had vanished now, as if swallowed by the city. Oberyn wondered who had swallowed her, and why. We are not done here, he said at last. Gregor's corpse is only the beginning. Tywin has other sins to answer for. Ellaria sighed and leaned down to press her forehead to his. Just promise me you will be there to see him answer, she whispered. In person, not as a name carved on a stone in some foreign September. He closed his eyes briefly, breathing her in. I promise, he said. I have not come this far to die in their city. We have work yet, you and I. The black cells were never truly black. There were always slivers of light. A torch's guttering glow at the end of a corridor. A thin spear of sun stabbing through a crack high in the wall. The phosphorescent smear of fungus. Men went mad down here not for lack of sight, but for lack of horizon. Tyrion Lannister sat on a hard bench, chains resting in his lap, and stared at the patch of wall across from him. In his mind's eye it was a yard soaked in blood, a Dornish prince spinning with a spear like some vengeful god of the Rhoyne, a mountain of a man toppling at last. You won, he had told Oberyn as they carried him past. Did he? Tyrion wondered now. Did either of us? The scrape of boots in the corridor pulled him from his thoughts. Keys rattled. A familiar shape loomed beyond the bars, outlined in torchlight. You look well, Tyrion said dryly as the door creaked open. Jaime stepped into the cell, the torch's light setting his golden hair aflame. He looked older than when Tyrion had last seen him, lines etched deeper around his mouth, his jaw set more firmly. The white cloak hung heavy from his shoulders, stained at the hem with dust and something darker. You look like something the Trident coughed up, Jaime replied. He set the torch in a wall sconce, the better to see his brother's face. I hear congratulations are in order. On my impending freedom or on Oberyn's survival? Tyrion asked. Perhaps both, though I note I am still chained to your father's justice. The verdict stands, Jaime said. By law, the combat decided your fate. You are innocent in the eyes of the gods and the realm. In the eyes of the gods, Tyrion repeated, tasting the irony. Our father thinks himself the only god that matters in this city. Jaime's mouth tightened. He cannot overturn the trial without making a mockery of the law. Even he is not that foolish. I would not wager my life on father's reluctance to play the fool, Tyrion said. He has done it often enough when it serves his purpose. Jaime paced, the chain at Tyrion's wrists clinking in time with his steps. He is furious, he admitted at last. At Oberyn, at Gregor, at you, at me. Tyrion raised his brows. What have I done, apart from being born? You forced this, Jaime said. You spurned the deal he offered, black and gold. A comfortable exile on the wall. He sees that as defiance. Good, Tyrion said quietly. I meant it to be. Jaime stopped. He will release you, he said, as if speaking the words aloud could make them true. He must. The whole city saw what happened. They heard what Gregor said. Father cannot. Cannot what? Tyrion asked. Cannot risk people remembering that Elia Martell had a brother who knows how to use that confession like a dagger at his throat? Cannot afford to let me live, knowing what I know of his little schemes? Perhaps he will arrange for me to fall down some convenient staircase on my way out of the Red Keep. You think he would? I think our father has killed for less, Tyrion said. Ask yourself, Jaime, how much is my life worth to him compared to his name? Jaime swallowed. The torch sputtered, casting shadows that made his face seem gaunter. Oberyn lives, he said, as though clinging to that fact as to a rope. Dorne will not be silent. If father moves against you now, he risks war. Perhaps he is counting on their prince dying truly of his wounds, Tyrion said softly. A poisoned cut, aggravated by his own venom. What a tragedy. Jaime flinched. The maesters say he will recover, he replied. He lost blood, but the wound is clean. Pycelle is annoyed he wouldn't submit to leeches. That alone suggests Oberyn will live out of spite. Tyrion laughed, a humorless sound. Then perhaps I do have a chance, he said. A man like that is hard to sweep under a carpet. Jaime looked at him, eyes searching. Tyrion, he said, lowering his voice. If the worst comes, if father does something, there are ways out of this city that do not involve the front gates. You've been speaking to Varys, Tyrion guessed. And to my own conscience, Jaime said. I have wronged you before. I will not do it again. Tyrion studied his brother for a long moment. Then pray, he said at last, to whatever gods still listen to Lannisters, that Oberyn Martell does not die in that bed. Because if he lives, father is not the only one who will want something of me. He thought of the prince's dark eyes, the way they had glittered with something more than simple vengeance. Interest, calculation. Oberyn Martell had not risked his life simply to kill a single knight, no matter how monstrous. Tyrion could feel it in his bones. The game had widened, and he was no longer sure which side of the board he stood on. Sleep came to Oberyn in fits when it came at all. Pain tugged him toward waking whenever he shifted wrong. In his dreams, the yard replayed itself, but twisted Gregor never fell. The spear snapped. Elia's screams echoed from the walls. He woke from those with his heart racing and his hand reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. On the second night after the duel, he gave up on rest entirely and reached instead for pen and parchment. The candle beside his bed had burned low, wax pooling in a misshapen puddle. Ellaria slept curled against his uninjured side, one arm thrown across his stomach, breath steady. He eased himself free with care and swung his legs over the edge of the bed. The movement sent a lance of pain through his ribs, but he rode it out, jaw clenched. He had known worse. A spear tip in the gut outside Norvos. A crossbow bolt through his shoulder in the shadow of the Red Mountains. Pain was an old lover. On the bedside table lay a folded scrap of parchment, the ink still fresh. It bore only a few lines, written in a tight, practiced hand. Prince Oberyn, word of Gregor Clegane's confession will not remain in King's Landing. Ravens fly faster than carts of corpses. Dorne will hear of it within days. So will the rest of the realm. V. No signature beyond that single letter, but none was needed. Oberyn smiled faintly. Varys moved quickly when it suited him, and when it suited the realm. As he defined it, he reached for his own quill. The pain in his side made his hand shake at first, but he steadied it. Ink glistened in the candlelight as he wrote, "Brother, Gregor Clegane is dead. He died by my hand, in the trial yard of King's Landing, before the eyes of Tywin Lannister and half this cursed city. Before he died, he confessed to Elia's rape and murder, and to murdering her children, in words all could hear. The hand will call it the raving of a dying man. Let him. Changes nothing. We have what we needed, truth made public. The stain on our sister's name is washed clean. This does not end our quarrel with the lions. It begins it. Doran, you have waited long. Longer than I have had patience for. You have told me to bide and watch, to let the vipers coil while the lion sleeps. I have done as much as I can with spear alone. Now we must use what you are better at than I, patience and planning. The north bleeds, the riverlands burn. Tywin thinks himself master of it all, but cracks spread through his wall of stone. I have seen a dwarf son he despises, a vanished Stark girl, a realm grown sick of lions. We should speak of this. Of sweet revenge, yes, but also of opportunity. Oberyn." He sanded the letter and folded it, sealing it with wax stamped by his ring. As he pressed the seal, his side twinged. He closed his eyes briefly, picturing Sunspear, the water gardens, the long, low line of the Red Mountains. Home. One of his guards outside the door cleared his throat softly. "My prince, send a trusted man to the rookery," Oberyn said. "This is for Dorne, and not to be delayed. If any crow dares to tamper with it, I will clip his wings myself." A low chuckle. "Yes, my prince." The guard took the letter and exited. Oberyn remained sitting on the edge of the bed, breathing slowly. He thought then, unbidden, of the northern girl, Sansa Stark they had called her. So slim and still beside Joffrey, like a weirwood sapling planted in a field of thorns. He remembered the way Joffrey had smiled when the crossbow was in his hands, the gleam of cruelty that had nothing of Robert Baratheon in it and everything of Cersei. He wondered where the girl had gone, whether she was dead, buried in some anonymous grave beneath the city, or spirited away by one of the many players in the game. Men whispered of Petyr Baelish, the eel who slithered from office to office, collecting secrets, a Stark in hiding, a prince of Dorne with a confession in his pocket, a realm in pieces. It would be a waste, Oberyn thought, feeling a thrill of something like anticipation beneath his lingering rage, if all of this blood did no more than stain Lannister boots. He lay back down with care, easing himself beside Ellaria. She murmured something in her sleep and curled closer. "Soon," he whispered into the dark. "Soon, Elia. Soon, my love. We will make them answer for more than one murdered princess." The small council chamber smelled of parchment and dust and old power. Sunlight slanted down through the high windows, catching the edges of wax seals, the glint of inkwells, the worn grain of the great table carved in the shape of Westeros. Tywin Lannister sat at its head, a lion at rest, fingers steepled beneath his chin. Cersei stood at his right shoulder, not content with a lesser chair. Her gown was emerald green today, her hair tumbling in meticulously careless waves. Her eyes, when Oberyn entered, were as cold as a winter sea. Varys was there, hands folded, and Mace Tyrell, already mopping at his brow despite the mild weather. Pycelle occupied his customary place, beard freshly combed, indignation barely concealed. Grandison and the others filled in the spaces, lesser satellites around two suns. "Prince Oberyn," Tywin said as the Dornishman strode into the room, Ellaria gliding a step behind him. "You should be Abed." "I find I heal quicker when I am not bored," Oberyn replied. He wore a loose robe of deep red and gold, the colors echoing but not matching Lannister hues, its belt tied above the line of his bandaged ribs. Each step sent a dull ache radiating through his side. He welcomed it, kept him sharp. He took a seat not at the far end of the table, but along the side, midway down, close enough to look Tywin in the eye without craning his neck. Ellaria stood at his back, hand on the carved finial of his chair. "We have matters to settle," Tywin said. "The death of Ser Gregor, the conclusion of the trial, the disposition of Tyrion Lannister." Oberyn smiled lazily. "I thought the disposition of Tyrion Lannister had been decided in the yard," he said. "By gods and swords and blood." Tywin's jaw flexed. "The law must be interpreted as well as applied," he said. "Tyrion is innocent of regicide in the eyes of the Seven, yes. But there remains the matter of his past crimes, his intemperate behavior, his threat to the crown." "He killed our son," Cersei hissed. "He confessed as much in his tantrum. He wished it. He gloated over it." "Wishing and doing are not the same," Oberyn said. "If they were, half the men at this table would be dead already." Mace Tyrell choked on a laugh before catching himself. Pycelle glowered. Tywin's eyes narrowed. "Tyrion remains a danger," he said. "The city whispers. They saw him stand accused. If he walks free without censure, the realm will see weakness where it should see justice." "The realm saw your knight confess to the rape and murder of my sister," Oberyn replied softly. "It saw your champion admit to murdering Rhaegar's children. There are whispers there as well, Lord Tywin, of orders given in secret, of rewards granted for butcher's work." Silence fell like a dropped curtain. For a heartbeat, even the flies in the corners seemed to still. Oberyn let the words hang between them, savoring the discomfort they caused in some faces. Varys's carefully blank mask, the flicker in Mace's small eyes, the way Cersei's hand tightened on the back of her father's chair. He did not press further. "Not yet. Ser Gregor was a bannerman of House Lannister," Oberyn continued. "He died by my spear, and with his dying breath he cleared my sister's name. That satisfies some part of my grievance, but not all." Tywin's gaze was like polished jade, hard and cool. "What more do you want, Prince Oberyn?" he asked. "Say it plainly." "Plainly? Very well." Oberyn folded his hands on the table. His fingers were long, tanned, stained faintly at the tips from years of handling herbs and venoms. "I want Dorne acknowledged as wronged, publicly. I want the record to show that Elia of House Martell was a princess of this realm, murdered during the sack of this city by a knight in your service, and that the crown regrets that unfortunate event." Cersei laughed, a bright, brittle sound. "Regrets," she said. "You want an apology? Shall we write songs as well? Ode to the Dornish princess, crushed in her bed?" Ellaria's nails dug into the wood of Oberyn's chair. He rested a hand over hers to still her. "Words matter," he said. "The right words, spoken in the right place, remembered in the right ears. Deny them, and I will carry Gregor's confession south regardless. Dorne has long memories." Tywin considered him. The muscles in his jaw flexed once, twice. "And if I agree to your wording," he asked, "what then?" "Then Dorne remains, as it has been, part of this realm," Oberyn said. "My brother continues to counsel patience. He continues to believe that peace is preferable to war. I am inclined to follow his lead. If I see true contrition, and some measurable act of good faith, such as..." Tywin's tone was wary now. Oberyn let his gaze fall briefly to the map carved into the table. His fingers traced the outline of the Red Mountains, the Dornish marches, the line of the Blackwater Rush. North, always north. His hand wandered, almost idly, to where Winterfell lay etched in miniature. "Such as confirmation of my niece Myrcella's betrothal to my nephew Trystane," he said. "Not only in principle but in practice. She should sail for Sunspear within the fortnight. 6 Dornish ships would see her safely to our shores. Once there, she will be treated as a daughter of our house." Cersei stiffened. "You would take my daughter from me?" "I would take your daughter into my protection," Oberyn corrected. Consider it an exchange. You took my sister once to wed your prince. That did not end well. Let us see if we can do better with this generation." Tywin's eyes narrowed. "Anything else?" "One more thing, small enough not to trouble your coffers," Oberyn said lightly. "Tyrion Lannister walks free. No knives in dark hallways. No unfortunate accidents. He leaves this city alive to go where he will." "That is not your concern," Cersei snapped. "It is if his death would be seen as a repudiation of the trial's verdict," Oberyn said. "If you kill the man I fought for, you make a liar of the gods and of me. Dorne will not sit quietly while you spit on its honor." "And if we refuse?" Tywin asked. Oberyn smiled, slow and lazy as a cat in the sun. "Then I go home," he said. "I go home with Gregor's confession and with the knowledge that you fear the truth enough to murder your own son in spite of it. I whisper into my brother's ear that patience has bought us nothing. I let the North, the Reach, the Vale, and every discontent in this fracturing realm hear how you mock the very laws you use to rule them. And then, one day, when the banners rise again, they will not rise only in the name of Stark or Baratheon. They will rise in the name of Martell as well." The room breathed out very slowly. Tywin's stare did not waver. "You threaten war," he said. "I offer you a way to avoid one," Oberyn replied. For a long moment, the only sound in the chamber was the faint hiss of a log settling in the hearth. Then Tywin Lannister inclined his head a fraction of an inch. "Myrcella will sail for Dorne within the month," he said. "Her betrothal to Tywin Martell will be formally announced in the throne room before she departs. As for Tyrion," his lips thinned, "he will be released. I will not have it said that House Lannister fears the judgment of the gods." Cersei rounded on him, eyes blazing. "Father, enough," Tywin said, and the word cracked like a whip. "We will speak later." Oberyn let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. Pain and triumph mingled in his chest. "One small step toward justice," he said. "It will do for now." Night wrapped the city in a cloak of shadow and smoke. From the balcony of his chamber, Oberyn could see the flicker of 1,000 torches tracing the streets like rivers of fire. The air smelled of salt and tallow and the distant tang of the sea. Blackwater Bay was a dark sweep beyond, pricked here and there with lanterns on anchored ships. Ellaria stood with her hands on the balustrade, hair stirring in the breeze. Below them, the Red Keep's lower courtyards bustled with activity even at this hour. Servants hurrying, guards changing watches, a cart creaking as it bore away some nameless burden. The city never truly slept. It only shifted from one kind of restlessness to another. "Do you trust him?" Ellaria asked without turning her head. "Tywin." "No," Oberyn said, "but I trust his pride. He will keep his word while it suits his image. He will not risk looking weak now, when the realm is already split like dry wood. He will send the girl south. He will let Tyrion go." "For how long?" she pressed. "For as long as it takes," he said. A raven launched itself from the rookery tower, dark wings momentarily silhouetted against the moons. Oberyn watched it vanish into the night, bearing his letter toward the Red Mountains, toward Doran's careful hands. "You played a dangerous game today," Ellaria murmured. "You threatened the most powerful man in the realm in his own council chamber." "He is only a man," Oberyn said. "I have killed men larger." "You are not healed," she said. Her hand slid to his side, fingers resting lightly over the bandaged wound, feeling the slow rise and fall of his breath. "Pain does not make you invincible. It makes me remember I am alive." He looked out over King's Landing, at the sprawling chaos of it, the way the streets twisted and knotted like snakes. How many had died in these alleys when the city last burned? How many of Elia's screams had been swallowed by this same stone? "The North will hear of this," he said quietly. "Of Gregor's confession, of Myrcella's voyage, of a Lannister son saved by a Dornish spear." "You think they will care?" Ellaria asked. "They have their own dead to mourn." "Grief recognizes itself," Oberyn replied. A wolf's pain is not so different from a viper's, and there are still Starks somewhere. There must be. The realm does not produce men like Eddard Stark and then let them pass without leaving shadows. He thought again of the bastard of Winterfell, the boy at the wall with Ned Stark's face and strange questions in his eyes. Jon Snow, a man of oaths, bound to a crumbling order at the edge of the world. "What are you thinking?" Ellaria asked, studying his profile. "I am thinking that lions have ruled this game for too long," Oberyn said. "What would the board look like if wolves and vipers learned to play together?" Ellaria laughed softly. "You and your animals," she said. "Do not forget the dragons rumored across the sea, or the krakens in their cold waters. This board you speak of is crowded. All the better." Oberyn's smile was sharp. "Chaos favors those willing to move first." He rested his elbows on the balustrade, ignoring the twinge in his side, and let his mind reach outward, past the city, past the bay, past the horizon. He saw Dorne rising, no longer content to be the hot, quiet corner of the realm where kings sent unwanted brides and exiled sons. He saw the north, bloody but unbowed, remembering the feel of its own strength. He saw the riverlands, the Vale, the Reach, all restless under the weight of gold and steel from Casterly Rock. "Today, I killed a single man," he said. "Tomorrow, perhaps, I kill an idea." "What idea is that?" Ellaria asked. "That lions rule by right," he answered. "That what was done to Elia and Rhaegar's children, what was done to the Starks, is the price that must be paid so the realm can sleep. I intend to keep this realm very much awake." He straightened slowly and turned back toward the chamber. Pain flared along his ribs, but he welcomed it. It would remind him in the months to come of the cost of his choices. "Come," he said to Ellaria, "rest while we can. When Myrcella sails, we sail with her. I have had enough of this city. If I must fight lions, I would rather do it from the comfort of my own sands." Ellaria's mouth curved. "Sunspear will be glad to have you in one piece," she said. "In some pieces, at least," he agreed. "Enough to hold a spear, enough to raise a cup, enough to build a new kind of alliance." As they stepped back into the chamber, the door closing softly behind them, King's Landing sprawled below like a beast at uneasy sleep. Above it, ravens crossed the moon, bearing whispers of confession and threat to every corner of the realm. In the dark between stars, a new game had begun. The galley rocked gently beneath Oberyn Martell's bare feet, the water of Blackwater Bay slapping against her hull in noisy, impatient kisses. Tar and salt and the faint stink of rotting fish mingled in the morning air. But there was a breeze off the sea, and it carried with it something cleaner, freedom, he thought, or the promise of it. King's Landing spread around the harbor like a diseased flower, its petals walls and towers and crooked streets. From here, it almost looked beautiful. Almost. The rising sun gilded the red keep spires, setting banners aflutter. The city was loud even at this hour, hawkers calling, gulls screeching, the grunt of men unloading cargo at other piers. But at the end of the jetty where the Dornish galley was moored, there was a curious hush. Lannister crimson glowed on the dock, a bloody stain amid the gray. Cersei Lannister stood there in a gown the color of summer leaves, her hair caught in elaborate braids threaded with gold. Beside her, Tywin Lannister was a tall, stern shape in dark doublet and cloak, his lion's head brooch winking with every slight movement. Behind them, a double line of guards in scaled armor held back the press of curious onlookers. Between lions and sun, Myrcella Baratheon looked very small. She stood a few paces from Oberyn, her gloved hands gripping the rail so tightly the knuckles showed white through kitskin. Her hair, a pale gold less stark than her mother's, was pulled back in a simple tail for travel, the wind tugging loose strands around her face. She wore a cloak of cream, clasped at the throat with a golden rose, Tyrell work, no doubt, but beneath it, glimpses of Dornish orange peeped through. A first concession. "You may change into the rest once we are past the city's sight," Oberyn had told her that morning, offering the trunk of dresses Ellaria had made. "No sense in giving your mother a fit before we weigh anchor. Now, As ropes creaked and sailors shouted to one another in guttural tongues, Cersei Lannister took a step closer to the edge of the pier. "Myrcella," she called up, her voice too bright by half. "Remember who you are." Myrcella Baratheon swallowed. Oberyn watched the motion, the slender throat working. "I am Myrcella Baratheon," she called back, pitching her voice clear over the water. "Daughter of King Robert and Queen Cersei, Princess of the Seven Kingdoms." "And?" Cersei demanded. Myrcella hesitated, then squared her shoulders. "And betrothed to Tywin Martell of Dorne." Ellaria Sand's lips twitched. Oberyn did not smile, but he felt something loosen in his chest at the girl's steadiness. The wind whipped the last word away, but it had been spoken. Tywin Lannister's face was carved stone. Only his eyes moved, tracking the girl, then sliding briefly to Oberyn. There was no warmth there, no hint of fondness for the granddaughter he was sending south. Only calculation, the placing of a piece on another corner of the board. "You will write every fortnight," Cersei said. "The maester in Sunspear will know to send your raven directly to me. If your hosts neglect you, if you are ill, if—" "Your Grace," Oberyn interrupted gently, "you have my word that Myrcella Baratheon will be treated with honor in Dorne." He let the words hang for a heartbeat, then added, "As our sister should have been treated here." Cersei's gaze snapped to him, green eyes narrowing. But there were too many watching faces on the quayside. Dockworkers, petty merchants, a cluster of Tyrell retainers farther back, and behind them, ragged small folk jostling for vantage. The city remembered the trial yard. They remembered Gregor Clegane's confession. They would be listening. "See that you remember whose blood she carries," Cersei said, voice low, the veneer of civility stretched thin. "If any harm comes to her." "If any harm comes to her," Oberyn said quietly enough that only those closest would hear, "you will have my head to mount beside Gregor Clegane's. You have my oath on that. But it will not be Dorne that does her harm if I can help it." He watched the flicker of something, guilt, fear, pass across Cersei's face. It was gone in an instant, buried beneath anger. A trumpet sounded somewhere farther along the quay. A harbor official bellowed commands. The captain, a dark-bearded man from Planky Town, stomped past them to the rail. "Cast off," he roared. Sailors leapt to obey. Lines were loosed from bollards and hauled aboard. Oars slid out and dipped as one into the green-black water. The galley shuddered, then began to inch away from the dock, the world shifting underfoot. For a moment, Myrcella swayed, her hand clutching the rail tighter still. Oberyn stepped closer but did not touch her. Let her find her own balance, he thought. She will need it. The gap of water between ship and shore widened. Cersei took an involuntary step forward, as though she might leap the distance by will alone. Tywin's hand shot out and closed around her wrist, stopping her. His face never changed. Myrcella leaned over the rail. "Goodbye," she called. Her voice shook now, the composure cracking, but she held her chin high. "Goodbye, Mother." Tommen Baratheon stood a little back, half hidden by guards, his round face blotchy with held-back tears. He lifted one pudgy hand in a jerky wave. "Be brave," he called, his voice almost lost in the wind. "Be brave, Myrcella." The girl's breath hitched. Oberyn saw it. He doubted anyone on the dock did. "You have more of him in you than you know," he murmured, stepping so close that his shoulder brushed hers. "Your father, the man the songs remember, not the one the wine made. Remember that when the world feels too big." She blinked rapidly and nodded, lips pressed together. The galley turned its prow toward the open bay, the city beginning to slide sideways in their view. Oberyn let his gaze track back to the dock one last time. Tywin Lannister watched them go, hands clasped behind high. Back, every inch the rock around which lesser men eddied. Cersei's gown whipped in the wind, her hair tangling. For an instant, he thought he saw something raw in her face, some private terror not for her pride but for the child shrinking into the distance. He filed that away, a new note in his ledger. "Goodbye, lions," he murmured in Dornish. "Enjoy your lair while you have it." The wind filled the sails with a crack, snapping the canvas taut. The galley heeled, then surged forward, cutting through the waves and out into the bay. By evening, King's Landing was a jagged smudge on the horizon, its towers little more than broken teeth against the darkening sky. The sea had steadied into a slow, rolling rhythm, the ship's timbers creaking like an old woman's joints as it rode the swells. The air tasted clearer out here, less smoke, more salt. Oberyn sat cross-legged on the deck, his back braced against a coil of rope, the ache in his ribs a steady throb that he wore like a familiar weight. Before him, spread across the planks and pinned against the breeze with bits of iron, lay a map of Westeros. The ink had faded along some of the coastlines from years of use, but the major marks remained. The jut of the north, the bulge of the reach, the long, curved dagger of Dorne. Myrcella Baratheon knelt opposite him, her cloak folded beside her, curls escaping their tie to dance around her face. She had shed the Tyrell brooch, setting it carefully aside, and wore one of the lighter Dornish dresses Ellaria had provided, its sleeves loose and airy. The color, a soft peach, warmed her pale skin. Ellaria Sand lounged nearby on a low stool, one leg draped over the other, a flagon of watered wine in hand. She watched them over the rim of her cup, amusement and something softer in her gaze. "So this is Dorne," Myrcella said, tracing a tentative finger along the southern edge of the map. "It looks small," Oberyn chuckled. "Sand and thorn and mountain do not need to be large on parchment to be large in truth," he said. "We are fewer than the Reach, fewer than the North, but our ground is hard, and we are harder. My uncle Renly used to say the same thing about the Stormlands," Myrcella said. "He said Storm's End was a fist punching into the sea. And Dorne is the knife aimed at the underbelly of the realm," Oberyn said. "We endured when dragons came. We endured when lions prowled. We will endure whatever comes next." She was quiet a moment, fingers resting lightly near Sunspear's mark. "Will they like me?" she asked abruptly. "In Dorne. I know they. Some of them must hate my family." Ellaria shifted, leaning forward. "Some of them hate your grandfather," she said bluntly. "Some hate your mother. Some hate the idea of Lannister gold draped over Dornish sand. But hatred is not a cloak we wear every hour. It would grow heavy." Oberyn nodded. "Children in Dorne have spent their lives hearing of Elia Martell," he said, "of how she died. They will look at you and see the blood of the house that profited from that death. Some will resent you for it, at first." Myrcella swallowed, shoulders curling inward. "Oh, some," Oberyn repeated. "Many more will see a girl far from home, sent south as a promise of peace. They will think of you as a guest, a pledge. If you are clever, some will think of you as one of them in time." "I don't know how to be Dornish," she said. "You learn," Ellaria said. "You listen more than you speak at first. You taste our food even when it burns your tongue. You dance when the drums start even if you step on toes. You ride in the morning before the sun turns cruel and sleep at midday when it does. You do not complain about the heat." Myrcella's mouth twitched. "What if I burn?" "You will burn," Oberyn said. "Everyone who comes to Dorne does the first months. Your skin will remember. It will grow wiser. So will you." She looked down at the map again, then up at him. "Will you teach me?" she asked, tentative. "About Dorne, and about your sister." Ellaria's gaze flicked to Oberyn's face. That question still had the power to sink a hook into his chest. "Yes," he said after a moment. "I will. You should know who Elia was, beyond the way she died." He shifted, careful not to tug the bandage beneath his tunic, and placed his finger on a small mark inland from Sunspear. "Here," he said, "the water gardens. Our princes and princesses grow up there, Dornish and visiting both. You will sleep under orange trees and wake to the sound of fountains. It is the best place in the world to be a child, and not a bad one to be a woman." Myrcella's eyes widened. Will I go there? Of course, Ellaria said. Doran Martell loves the water gardens more than his own bones. He will want you close where he can watch you and hide you from the worst of our politics. My uncle, Myrcella said slowly, as if tasting the word. I've never met him. He moves slowly, Oberyn said, like a man crossing ice. He will seem stone at first, but he feels deeper than most. That is why he moves so carefully. Are you and Prince Doran very different? Myrcella asked. Ellaria laughed softly. They are fire and earth, she said. One dances, one waits. One is a spear, the other a fortress. Between them, they might even keep you alive. Ellaria flatters me, Oberyn said. I am only a man with a scar and a grudge, trying to pretend I have a plan. You have many plans, Ellaria said. You just rarely write them down. Myrcella's gaze slid upward, toward the northern coastlines on the map. And there? She asked, touching the wolf's head shape of the north. What is it like there? Cold, Oberyn said at once. Too cold. The wine is weak and the women wear too many furs. The men too, for that matter. They are stubborn, those northerners, and they carry their honor around like a shield twice the size it needs to be. He remembered the bastard boy's eyes at the wall, the gray of storm clouds over desert stone. They are not so different from us in some ways, he added. We both remember old wrongs. We both bury our dead with their swords. The Starks, Myrcella said. The word came out like a sigh heavy with stories. Joffrey liked to say they were traitors. He liked to talk about their heads on spikes. Your brother liked to talk of many things he did not understand, Oberyn said. Eddard Stark was not a man to betray lightly. Whatever else he may have been, he died for something he believed in. There were worse epitaphs. Myrcella's mouth trembled. Sansa Stark was kind to me, she said softly. In the beginning. Before. She swallowed. I don't know where she is now. Neither do I, Oberyn said. Not yet. But if she lives, the North will have a face again, sooner or later. And when it does, Dorne will take note. Myrcella frowned down at the map, then looked up, meeting his eyes. Are you going to fight my family? She asked. Truly fight them, I mean. Not just in the yard with one knight. The honesty of it startled him. Children in court learned to wrap their questions in courtesies. Even Tommen did, sometimes. Myrcella's words went straight to the bone. I am going to fight for my family, Oberyn said. That will put me against some of yours. Against men like your grandfather. Against your mother, perhaps, if she insists on standing in my path. But you are not a peace I mean to break, Myrcella Baratheon. You are one I hope to move. Move where? She whispered. He tapped Dorne, then the north. Between these, he said. Between sand and snow. Between lion and wolf. Perhaps you might be the string that ties a new tapestry together. She stared at him, young and frightened and suddenly very aware that her life had been hitched to currents she barely understood. I'm only one girl, she said. One girl can carry a great deal on her shoulders, Ellaria murmured, thinking of Nymeria of legend, of Obara and Nymeria Sand and Tywin, of Elia Martell with her sharp eyes and sharper pride. You will not be the first. Oberyn folded the map with slow, careful motions and tucked it into a leather tube. The sea hissed alongside, steady and implacable. Tonight, he said, you will sleep. Tomorrow, I will tell you about a boy named Rhaegar and a girl named Lyanna, and how their story tangled with my sisters. If you are to understand the game we are in, you must know how it began. Myrcella nodded, jaw set. The wind caught the hair at her temples and lifted it like a halo. For a moment, Oberyn saw not a child, but a woman grown, standing between banners half-scorched, holding peace in hands that had never known a sword's hilt. It was a vision or a hope or a madness. Perhaps all three. The ship sailed on into the darkening sea, bearing them south toward the place where his own ghosts waited. The first breath of Dornish air hit Oberyn like a lover's slap, hot, dry, scented with dust and citrus and the faint, metallic tang of the sea against stone. Sunspear's towers rose ahead in familiar lines, pale yellow and ochre against a sky of merciless blue. The sea breeze did what it could, but here, on the spear point of Dorne, the sun ruled. The galley eased alongside the quay, ropes thrown and caught with practiced hands. The dock was a riot of color. Men in loose linen, women in bright skirts, children darting between legs like darting fish. Orange and red and gold banners fluttered from poles. Somewhere, a drum beat out a lazy rhythm, as if even music refused to hurry in this heat. At the end of the pier, beneath a striped awning, Doran Martell waited. He sat in a wooden chair cunningly built with wheels, its arms carved in the shape of coiled snakes. His legs were covered by a light blanket, but Oberyn knew every line of the wasted limbs beneath, every pain that came with each change of weather. Doran's face was lined more deeply than when Oberyn had last seen him, the years etching furrows at the corners of his eyes and mouth, but his gaze was as sharp as ever. Beside him stood Elia Martell, dark hair loose down her back, eyes alight. To his other side, Obara Sand leaned on a spear taller than she was, her jaw clenched. Nymeria Sand and Tywin Sand flanked her, as different from each other as Storm, Silk, and Smile, but united in the intensity of their stare. Behind them, a cluster of Dornish lords and ladies waited, their faces bright with curiosity and something like hunger. News traveled faster than ravens in Dorne. By now, every soul here would have heard some version of what had happened in King's Landing. Tales of Gregor Clegane's death would already have grown scales and wings. The gangplank thudded into place. Oberyn stepped onto it. For a heartbeat, the wood swayed beneath him, his sea legs adjusting back to solid ground. His side protested at the angle, but he ignored the ache. He had not come this far to hobble. Ellaria Sand followed one step behind, her hand on Myrcella Baratheon's shoulder, steadying the girl when she wobbled. Myrcella shaded her eyes with one hand, squinting at the blaze of the sun. The heat struck her like a physical force. Oberyn saw the moment it stole the breath from her chest. She recovered quickly enough, shoulders straightening. The crowd's murmur grew louder as they recognized their prince. Someone shouted, "Oberyn," and another, "Elia," and then the chant took up, weaving those two names together until they were a single sound. He reached the bottom of the plank and stepped onto Dornish stone. It felt different from the stone of the Red Keep, less smug. "Brother," Doran Martell said. His voice was mild, but it carried. He held out his hand. Oberyn crossed the remaining space and took it, clasping his brother's fingers in both of his own. For an instant, the noise of the quay fell away. They were boys again, barefoot in the water gardens, plotting mischief, sharing secrets under orange trees. "You look old," Oberyn said, because their love had always worn the mask of insult. "You look alive," Doran replied, which in their tongue meant, "Thank the gods." Eyrie Martell moved in then, unable to restrain herself longer. She threw her arms around Oberyn's neck, nearly knocking him off balance. "Uncle," she breathed, "you ridiculous man. You've had Dorne waiting with bated breath since the first raven." "Careful," he grunted as pain flared in his side. "Your ridiculous uncle is held together by thread at the moment." She stepped back, eyes dropping to the faint bulge of bandage beneath his robe. Her expression sharpened. "He hurt you." "He died," Oberyn said. "It balances." Obara Sand snorted. "You should have taken his head," she said. "Put it on a spike on the city's walls." "I took something more useful," Oberyn replied. He lifted his chin, letting his gaze sweep the gathered crowd. "I took his confession." A ripple went through the people nearest. That word passed back like a wind. Confession. Confession. Tywin Sand clasped her hands together as if in prayer. "Tell us," she said. "Tell us he said it. Tell us he said her name." "He did," Oberyn said. "He said Elia Martell with blood in his throat, and he told them what he did to her, to Rhaenys, to Aegon. He said it before gods and men, and then he died." The cheer that followed was raw, half joy and half grief. Men raised fists. Women wept, tears cutting clean lines through dust on their cheeks. Children clapped without fully understanding, moved by the current of emotion around them. Doran's hand tightened on his arm. "We will speak of this in private," he murmured. "Too much heat on an open dock. Too much sun everywhere," Oberyn said lightly. "I have been in the north too long. I begin to sympathize with pale skins." Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Myrcella Baratheon stiffen. "Ah," he said, turning so that the girl came into Doran's full view. "Brother, may I present Myrcella Baratheon?" "Myrcella, this is Prince Doran Martell, Lord of Sunspear, your uncle by future marriage and by courtesy of this tangled realm." Myrcella swallowed, then stepped forward. She sank into a curtsy that would have pleased the most exacting septa, head bowed against the glare. "Your Grace," she said, "thank you for receiving me into your home." "For receiving you into your home," Doran corrected gently. "Dorne is yours now as much as ours, Princess Myrcella Baratheon. You are most welcome here." She looked up, startled. Their eyes met, his dark and weighted, hers light and uncertain. He smiled, a small, real thing that smoothed some of the severity from his features. "You are tired from the voyage," he said. "You must be hot in that cloak. Arianne will see you to your chambers in the palace. The water gardens will be yours soon enough." Elia Martell stepped forward at once, her natural grace sliding into the role of hostess as if she had waited her whole life for it. "Princess Myrcella Baratheon," she said, offering her arm. "Come, we will find you fruit and cool water and something light to wear. If you faint on our stones, my father will blame me, and I am not ready to take the blame for a princess falling at my feet." Myrcella's lips curved despite herself. "I will try not to shame you so quickly, Princess Arianne Martell," she replied. They moved off together, a small entourage of ladies and servants falling in behind them. The crowd parted to let them pass, curiosity flaring in dark eyes as they took in the pale girl from the capital. When the noise had ebbed a little, Doran nodded to his attendants. "Get me to the palace," he said. "My brother and I have much to discuss, and I prefer to do it somewhere with shade." Obara Sand thumped the butt of her spear on the stone. "We have much to discuss as well," she said. "You cannot keep us from this, father. Or you, uncle." Oberyn laughed softly. "I would not dare," he said. "Come. Let us all go indoors before the sun cooks us where we stand." They made their way up from the quay, along the winding path that led through Sunspear's lower town and into the inner fortress. Heat radiated from the stones underfoot. Above, gulls wheeled and cried. Somewhere, a child began to sing a bawdy song about a lion who thought himself king of the desert and ended up as a rug. Oberyn breathed it in, every note of it. He was home, and the war he had promised himself was only just beginning. The water gardens were as Oberyn remembered, a mosaic of shallow pools and tiled walks, colonnades casting long bars of shade across the water. Orange trees arched overhead, their branches heavy with fruit, their blossoms scenting the air. Children laughed and shrieked, chasing one another through the fountains, their brown limbs slick with water and sunlight. Here, war seemed a thing from stories. Here, Elia had once watched her daughters play, her lap full of peeled fruit, her eyes soft. The thought was a knife and a bomb both. Doran Martell sat beneath one of the colonnades, his chair drawn up close to the edge of a pool. His hand trailed in the water, fingers stirring slow patterns. Oberyn lowered himself to sit cross-legged on the warm tiles beside him, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. Ellaria Sand stood a little behind, one hand resting on a carved pillar. Obara Sand, Nymeria Sand, and Tywin Sand lingered within earshot, their faces intent. "Gregor Clegane is dead," Doran said, as though testing the taste of the words. "He is," Oberyn replied. "I watched him fall. I watched him choke on his own blood. I watched the fear in Tywin Lannister's eyes when he realized your sister's name had been dragged into the light." Doran's fingers stilled in the water. "You could have died," he said quietly. Yes, you nearly did. Yes, Oberyn said again, because there was no sense in softening it. But I did not. And if you had? Doran asked. If Gregor had crushed your skull, as some ravens implied for a time, what would we be speaking of now? Oberyn plucked an orange from a low-hanging branch and rolled it between his palms, feeling the skin's roughness, the oil beading under his fingers. You would be speaking of vengeance still, he said, but you would be speaking of it from a weaker place. A Dornish prince slain in the capital, a confession unspoken. The lions would have grown bolder. Now they must look south and see more than sand. Doran sighed, the sound scarcely louder than the ripple of water. You always did think your own death a reasonable price for a good jest, he said. This was more than jest. It was folly. Brave, terrible folly. Effective folly, Oberyn countered. He squeezed the orange, a thin spray of juice catching the light. We have what we needed. The realm knows now that Elia's death was not an accident in the chaos of a sack. It was murder, done by a knight who named her as he did it. It is harder to pretend justice when the crime is that clear. Obara Sand snorted. The realm has swallowed worse, she said. The North watched Eddard Stark lose his head and did not rise in time to save him. The Riverlands watched their lord butchered at a feast. Men muttered and drank and went on bending the knee. They rose later, Nymeria Sand said softly, eyes distant. Too late, but they rose. Tywin Sand smiled, all dimples and poison. People remember, she said, even when they pretend they do not. The truth is like vinegar in wine. Once poured, you cannot take it out again. Doran looked at his daughters, then back at Oberyn. You spoke of terms in your letter, he said. Of Myrcella Baratheon's betrothal, of Lannister concessions, of a promise wrung from Tywin's teeth. Tell me again. Oberyn laid out the conversation in the small council chamber, sparing no detail. He described Cersei's fury, Tywin's calculation, the way the hand had weighed the risk of war against the insult of yielding. He spoke of his demand for Tyrion Lannister's life, of the agreement that the dwarf would leave King's Landing alive. Why spend coin on the imp? Obara Sand asked bluntly. We owe him no debt. We owe him a small one, Oberyn said. He stood up in that throne room and named his father's cruelty. He refused an easy death at the wall because it would have made a lie of his innocence. And he gave me the opportunity one needed to face Gregor Clegane in the yard. I do not forget such things. Nor, Tywin Sand said, do we waste any enemy of Tywin Lannister. Even a half-sized one may bite at a lion's heel. Doran's gaze drifted to the children in the pool. One little boy splashed a girl with both hands, and she shrieked, then dunked him in retaliation. Their laughter rang off the stone. You think to use Tyrion Lannister, Doran said. How? As a wedge, Oberyn said. A crack in the rock. He knows things. Numbers. Alliances. Weaknesses. He knows what his father fears, because he has felt the weight of that fear all his life. A man despised is a man with less to lose. Doran's lips compressed. You speak of games, he said. What of war? War is a game, Oberyn said. The pieces are just more expensive. He tossed the orange lightly into the air and caught it again. The North bleeds, he went on. The Riverlands are in ashes. The Vale hides behind its mountains. The Reach grows fat on proximity to power. And Dorne has waited. We have watched. We have muttered about Elia in our cups. That changes now. You mean to march? Obara Sand demanded, eyes alight. At last. No, Doran said sharply. We do not march blindly into a war we cannot win. Oberyn smiled crookedly. Hear him, he said, the cautious tortoise in his shell. Doran's hand clenched on the arm of his chair. Caution kept Dorne from burning when dragons flew, he said. Caution kept us free of foreign garrisons when Aegon conquered elsewhere. You have always been too eager to spend blood, Oberyn. You forget how hard it is to replace. Oberyn leaned back on his hands, letting the sun warm his face. "I do not propose we raise the banners tomorrow," he said. "I propose we choose our allies before the next storm breaks." "Which allies?" Doran asked. "The dragon girl across the sea? The crippled stag in the north? The boy king on his mother's lap?" "Perhaps all of them," Oberyn said. "Perhaps none. But there is one house whose grief matches ours. One whose dead lie closer to our own in outrage and in number. The Starks." Doran's eyes sharpened. "There are no Starks," he said. "Not in power. Robb Stark is dead. His mother is dead. His army scattered. The boy lord at the wall has taken no crown. There are always Starks," Oberyn said softly. "Ghosts in their gods' woods, if nothing else. And there are men who remember them. Wyman Manderly, the mountain clans, perhaps even some of the river lords. The North's loyalty did not die with one boy at a feast." "You speak as if you have a specific wolf in mind," Nymeria Sand observed. Oberyn thought of Jon Snow again, of the way the boy had listened when he spoke of Lyanna, of the questions in his eyes that he had not yet known how to ask. "I have suspicions," he said. "Rhaegar spoke to Elia of prophecies once, when wine loosened his tongue, of the song of ice and fire, and of 3 heads of the dragon, of a girl he could not forget. You think I do not wonder where those songs went when he died?" Doran's fingers drum a slow beat on the arm of his chair. "You think Eddard Stark harbored more than his sister's bones," he said. "I think the North does not break so easily," Oberyn replied. "And I think if there is a wolf with dragon blood in his veins, he may be the one creature in this realm who truly understands what was taken from us when Elia died. From all of us." Tywin Sand tilted her head. "A wolf dragon," she said. "It sounds like a story told to children in the water gardens." "Stories move men more than numbers do," Ellaria Sand said. "You know that, father." She stepped forward, sliding into the space between the brothers, her hand resting lightly on Oberyn's shoulder. "What Oberyn suggests is not war tomorrow. It is an opening." Doran studied them all for a long moment. His reckless brother, his daughters with their bright, dangerous eyes, Ellaria with her half-smile. At last he exhaled. "What do you propose precisely?" he asked. Oberyn smiled, slow and sharp. "A raven to the north," he said. "Perhaps to the man on the wall who wears Lord Eddard Stark's face. And another to that slippery eel in the Vale, Petyr Baelish, asking what price he would take to reveal where the last trueborn Stark girl has gone." Obara Sand grinned. "And after the ravens?" "After the ravens," Oberyn said, "I go myself." Night in Sunspear was a different creature than night in King's Landing. There, darkness came heavy with smoke and the stench of too many bodies in too little space. Here, the air cooled enough to be kind. The stars spread themselves in dizzying profusion over the sky, close enough to pluck, or so it had seemed when Oberyn was a boy. He sat now in a small solar overlooking the inner courtyard, the window cut narrow and tall to catch any wandering breeze. The stone under his bare feet held the day's heat like a memory. A single candle guttered on the desk before him, its light painting the room in shades of gold and shadow. Parchment lay scattered across the desk, some sheets already filled with tight, precise script, others still blank. A map of Westeros took up one corner, a curl at its edge where the dry air had warped the vellum. A raven's feather lay beside it, a casualty of some earlier scuffle in the rookery. Oberyn dipped his quill in ink and began another letter. To Lord Commander Jeor Mormont had gone an earlier missive, couched in formal courtesy. Inquiries about the state of the Night's Watch, the condition of its garrisons, the rumors of wildling movements beyond the wall. Beneath those polite questions lay a subtler one. Who, these days, wore a Stark's face at the edge of the world? To Petyr Baelish, newly styled Lord Protector of the Vale, he had penned a different note, one that danced around the subject of lost girls and found fortunes. Lord Petyr Baelish, Dorne remembers its debts and its allies, as all prudent houses do. Once, long ago, we shared a crown with another kingdom. That crown was taken by a storm and a lion. The storm is spent, the lion wanes. It is in such times that men of flexibility prosper. I am told you have always been flexible. We have heard whispers, only whispers, that the last known daughter of Eddard Stark has vanished from King's Landing and may have flown to snugger nests. If such whispers are true, it would interest Dorne greatly to know where that bird has perched, and what she might sing if encouraged. Dorne rewards those who bring it useful truths. Consider this a friendly invitation to conversation. Oberyn and Martell, Prince of Dorne. Now he turned his attention northward in earnest. Lord Wyman Manderley, he wrote, in ink that gleamed black against the pale page, Dorne has not forgotten Lord Eddard Stark's ride south, nor his fate in the capital. We have not forgotten the wedding that was not a wedding, nor the slain king who wore wolf's fur. We have heard how the Dreadfort's flayed men now fly where dire wolves once did. It is not for Dorne to tell the North what banners to follow. But know this, we have seen our own kin murdered under a lion's shadow. We have seen our own princess crushed so that others might feel safer in their crowns. Gregor Clegane is dead by my hand. Before he died, he confessed under the eyes of gods and men to the rape and murder of my sister, Elia of House Martell, and her children, Rhaenys and Aegon. The hand of the king will call it delirium, but the truth has been spoken. I send you this not to beg for your pity, nor to claim kinship where none exists in law. I send it because men like you remember, because the North and Dorne have both lost much to the same lions. If ever the North should look southward for a hand that is not crowned with golden hair, know that Dorne will listen. Oberyn and Martell. He sanded the letter, shook off the grit, and set it aside to dry. His ribs ached where the bandage pinched. He stretched carefully, wincing, then rolled his shoulders to loosen the knot of tension between them. You will wear your arm off if you keep writing at this pace, Ellaria Sands said from the doorway. He looked up to find her leaning against the jamb, her night robe belted loosely, bare feet silent on the stone. Her hair fell in a tangle around her shoulders, eyes gleaming in the candlelight. Better my arm than my temper, he said. Besides, ravens are cheaper than soldiers. She stepped into the room, coming to stand behind his chair. Her hands settled on his shoulders, thumbs digging into muscle. He hissed as she found a knot, then sighed as it began to unknot under her touch. To the north? She asked, nodding at the letters. And the Vale, he said, and the wall, and everywhere else I can find a crack in this rotten edifice. You never could be content with striking once, she murmured. You have to run your fingers along every possible wound. If you cut a beast, you either finish it or you make sure it never heals properly, he said. Tywin Lannister has ruled this realm by fear and by the illusion of inevitability. I intend to show the realm that inevitability can bleed. She bent to kiss the crown of his head, lips lingering. Do you ever fear you overreach? She asked. That you play at games bigger than any one man? Every day, he said. That is why I learned to laugh. Without laughter, madness comes quicker. She straightened and picked up the map, studying the lines. Her finger traced the wall's jagged mark, then slid down toward Winterfell, then farther south to King's Landing and east again toward Dorne. Do you truly think the North will answer? She asked. Not at once, he said. Not loudly, but men will read these words in smoky halls, with their sons asleep on rushes and their wives darning old cloaks. They will remember the taste of fry bread and Lannister promises. They will think, for the first time, of a spear and a wolf fighting side by side, instead of each in their own pen. Ellaria's mouth curved. Trust you to try to teach wolves to dance, she said. Someone must, he replied. If the dead are really walking in their snow, as the old tales say and as some wildlings claim, then the living cannot afford to stay in their separate corners much longer. She stilled. You believe those tales? I have seen stranger things than dead men. Walking, he said. I have seen kings choked by pies and boys crowned before their voices break. I have seen dragons hatch from stone, or so men I trust insist. He shrugged, the motion making her hands ride his shoulders. If there is danger in the far north, It is all the more reason to find common cause now, before the Lions' games consume the last of us. Ellaria set the map down and came around the desk to perch on its edge, facing him. "And when will you ride north yourself?" she asked. "When I can sit a horse without my side splitting," he said. "Give me a few weeks, a month, perhaps 2. Let the ravens fly first. Let men get used to seeing my name on their tables. And in that time," she pressed, "what of Myrcella Baratheon?" He smiled. "In that time," he said, "we teach a lion cub how to survive among vipers." The water gardens did what they always did. They softened edges. Within a week, Myrcella Baratheon had shed her heavy southern gowns for lighter silks. Within 2, her skin had begun to darken from chalk to cream, the barest hint of gold at her cheeks and nose. Within 3, she had learned not to flinch when a gaggle of Dornish brats dragged her, laughing, into a fountain fully clothed. Now she stood thigh-deep in a shallow pool, water lapping against her skirt as she tried to balance on one foot. A little boy of 5 splashed her, and she squealed, then splashed back with surprising ferocity. Elia Martell waited beside her, skirts hitched, hair braided back from her face. She moved with lazy grace, eyes bright with mischief. "You will never keep your hair neat in Dorne," Elia said, as Myrcella pushed wet strands from her forehead. "Best resign yourself now. The sun and water conspire against us all." Myrcella laughed, breathless. "I've never been allowed to get this wet before," she confessed. "Mother would." She cut herself off, biting her lip. The word hung there anyway, a ghost between them. Arianne flicked a droplet of water at her nose. "Your mother is 1,000 leagues away," she said. "Here, you may be what you like." "What am I here?" Myrcella asked. It was not a simple question. "A girl in a pool," Arianne said. "A princess with more sense than most. A hostage, if we are speaking plainly. But also a piece on a board, if we are speaking as my uncle would." Myrcella swallowed, then squared her shoulders, splashing water with her heel. "And what piece?" she asked. "A pawn." Arianne's mouth curved. "Perhaps," she said. "Perhaps a queen in the making, if you learn to move the right way." On the shaded terrace above the pool, Oberyn Martell watched them with narrowed eyes. The sight of golden hair among Dornish children would have twisted his gut once, reminded him too sharply of Elia's brood. Now he forced himself to see the living, not the ghosts. "She is adapting," Doran Martell observed. "She is," Oberyn agreed. "Faster than I expected." "Children do," Doran said. "They have not yet learned the art of clinging to pain." Oberyn huffed. "Some of us never master that art," he said. "Some of us have made of it their life's work," Doran replied, but there was no real sting in it. Oberyn leaned on the low wall that overlooked the pool, careful of his side. Tywin Sand and Nymeria Sand sat nearby on cushions, pretending to embroider while their eyes tracked every movement. Obara Sand was nowhere in sight. She preferred the training yards to the water gardens, her notion of leisure involving blunted spears and bruises. "I have spoken with Myrcella Baratheon's septa," Doran said. "She is furious at us for allowing the girl to run barefoot, to eat spiced food, to swim with common children. She claims you are turning a princess into a mudlark." "Then we are doing something right," Oberyn said. "The sooner the girl learns that her skin will not crack if she touches the ground, the better." "She has been asking questions," Tywin said without looking up from her needle. "About Elia Martell, about Rhaenys and Aegon, about why people whisper their names when they think she is not listening." "Good," Oberyn said. "Let her know the truth, not the court version." "Septa Eglantine would rather teach her prayers," Nymeria said dryly. "Myrcella Baratheon has taken to slipping away from her lectures. Arianne is a poor influence." "Arianne is an excellent influence," Oberyn said. "She knows exactly how this realm can chew and spit a woman with the wrong name." Doran shifted in his chair. "Do you mean to make Myrcella Baratheon hate her mother?" he asked. "No," Oberyn said. "I mean to make her see her clearly. Hatred clouds as much as love." I would have her understand that Cersei Lannister is not a monster in a tale, but a woman who made choices. Some from fear, some from pride, some from love twisted into something else. Ambitious, Doran murmured, to give a child such subtlety. We give her truth in small pieces, Oberyn said, as she can swallow it. The same way we season food here. You do not pour a whole jar of chili into a babe's mouth. She already knows more than you think, Nymeria said quietly. She dreams of Joffrey Baratheon's face when he died. She wakes crying sometimes. I heard her in the night 3 days ago. Oberyn's jaw tightened. She was at that feast, he said. She saw her brother's throat close and his eyes bulge while men and women sat and watched. That kind of memory does not leave easily. The North has children with such memories too, Doran said. Orphans of war. Sons who watched fathers cut down at the Whispering Wood. Daughters who saw their brothers' heads on spears at the twins. Which is why I intend to see them as more than names on a map, Oberyn replied. Below, Myrcella slipped on a slick tile and went under with a splash. For a heartbeat, panic tightened his chest, but she surfaced at once, spluttering, her hair plastered to her cheeks. Arion hauled her upright, laughing, and the two clung to one another, gasping before dissolving into giggles. She is not Elia, Doran said softly, as if reading his thoughts. She is not responsible for what was done to our sister. Remember that when you look at her. I know, Oberyn said. That is why she is here. If I thought her a lion cub with her mother's teeth, I would have let Cersei keep her. Doran's gaze shifted from the pool to his brother. You will go north, he said. It was not quite a question. Yes, Oberyn said, when I can ride without bleeding all over the saddle. I do not trust anyone else to read the North properly for us. The ravens will carry words, but words can be forged. I prefer to look into men's eyes. You always did, Doran said. What of Dorne while you are gone? You will have Myrcella Baratheon, Oberyn said, and Elia Martell, and 3 of my daughters with more venom between them than most armies. I suspect you will manage. Doran smiled faintly. I have managed worse, he said. Go then when you are ready. But remember this, Oberyn. I do not want a war we cannot win. If the North is too broken to stand, if their wolves have been declawed, do not waste our spears for the sake of your poetic notions. Oberyn inclined his head. I will remember, he said, and if I find a wolf worth backing, I will send word. Send more than word, Doran said. Send a sign that the world truly is changing. I have played this game slowly. I would not mind, before I die, seeing one of our pieces move faster than the rest. Oberyn watched Myrcella Baratheon fling water into the air, sunlight catching the droplets so they hung for a heartbeat like diamonds. He thought of a boy in black at the end of the world, of rumors of dragons overseas, of dead men in snow. The world is already changing, he said. We are just deciding whether to ride the wave or drown beneath it. The wind atop the wall knifed through wool and leather as if they were spider silk. It carried with it the smells of ice and old cold and the faint, distant tang of smoke from Castle Black's kitchens far below. It stole breath and tears both, leaving eyes watering and lungs burning. Jon Snow stood with his gloved hands resting on the rough, frozen top of the ice, his cloak snapping behind him like a torn banner. Ghost pressed against his leg, the direwolf's fur a blur of white against the greater whiteness beyond. Red eyes narrowed to slits against the wind. Beyond the wall, the land stretched away in rolling waves of snow and jagged forest, the trees' black claws reaching for a gray sky. Somewhere out there, Mance raiders scattered people huddled around meager fires. Somewhere out there, the dead walked. You'll turn to ice if you stand there much longer, Samwell Tarly puffed as he clambered up beside Jon, cheeks red, breath fogging in front of him. Even you. Jon's mouth twitched. I grew up in Winterfell, he said. This is almost warm. Sam snorted, then fell silent, leaning against the crenellation to catch his breath. Ghost sniffed at him, then huffed, unimpressed. They stood that way for a time, exchanging few words. They did not need many. The wall spoke for itself. It was Sam who saw the raven first. A small, dark shape against the clouds, wings beating steadily. "There," he said, pointing. "From the south, by the look of it." Jon followed his gesture, squinting. The bird grew swiftly larger, angling toward the rookery tower rather than the wild expanse beyond. Another raven, another message, another reminder that the world went on below while they stood guard over the end of it. "Maybe news from King's Landing," Sam said. "Or White Harbor. Or somewhere else." "Somewhere else," Jon repeated. His thoughts went, unbidden, to a face he had seen only once. Dark eyes and a sardonic smile above a spear. A man who moved like water and spoke of Lyanna Stark with the easy familiarity of one who had truly known her. Oberyn Martell had been a brief flare in Jon's life, a comet across a northern sky. He had not expected to think of him again. Yet when the wildling girl Ygritte had told him stories of a Prince of Dorne, years ago in a half-remembered tale, something had sparked. Now, with the world shifting under his feet, Jon found himself wondering what that man was doing. "Come," he said, pushing off from the ice. "Let's go see what crow has flown to us today." They descended by the narrow, freezing stair, boots ringing against stone. In the rookery, Maester Aemon's blind eyes turned toward the sound of their approach, his hand resting on the head of a raven that croaked low in its throat. "Another visitor from the south," Aemon Targaryen said. "The birds bring more words than the wind these days." "Where from?" Jon asked, brushing snow from his shoulders. "Dorne," Aemon said, and there was a faint note of surprise in his voice that Jon did not often hear. "It has been some time since we had word from Sunspear." Sam took the parchment the old man offered and fumbled it open, his fingers clumsy with cold and nerves. Jon waited, impatience coiled tight beneath his calm. Sam's lips moved as he skimmed the lines, eyes going wide. "It's to the Lord Commander," he said. "But you should hear this, Jon. I think you need to." Jon stepped closer. The superior officers would be angry if they knew, but there were few secrets at the wall, and fewer still when the dead marched. Sam read aloud, voice shivering over some of the words. "Prince Oberyn Nimros Martell of Dorne writes to inquire as to the state of the Night's Watch and the condition of its garrisons," Sam began. "He expresses concern at rumors of wildlings massing beyond the wall, and offers, if need should be, to send grain and men should the realm's neglect grow too dire." Jon blinked. The idea of Dornish men in bright silks trudging along the wall stones was surreal enough to make him dizzy. "There's more," Sam said. "He writes also to ask whether there still serves upon the wall a man called Jon Snow, son of the late Lord Eddard Stark of Winterfell, who departed with the last company from the north to take the Black." Jon's heart stuttered. Ghost's ears pricked. "If so," Sam continued, "Prince Oberyn Martell requests that this Jon Snow be informed that the prince remembers their brief conversation in King's Landing with interest, and that he would be pleased to renew the acquaintance should their paths ever cross again. He adds that Dorne remembers the fate of Eddard Stark as it remembers the fate of Elia Martell, and that it is sympathetic to wolves who have lost their pack." Sam lowered the parchment, eyes round. He remembers you," he said. Jon swallowed. The letter seemed to burn in the air between them. Oberyn Martell's voice came back to him. "A wolf in black among crows. What a curious creature." "He could mean nothing by it," Jon said slowly. "Politeness, or some southern game." "Maybe," Sam said, "but he mentions your father. And sympathy. That's not nothing, Jon. Not from a Prince of Dorne." Maester Aemon's blind eyes turned toward them, milky and pale. "Princes do not write to the wall without reason," he said. "Dorne has long memories. So does the North. Perhaps they are beginning to remember each other." Jon thought of Winterfell's burned walls, of Robb's head on a wolf's body in nightmare visions he could not quite shake. He thought of his father's last look, the way Eddard Stark had walked to his death at the September. "What does he want?" he asked. Perhaps he wants to know if any wolves still stand, Eamon said. Perhaps he wants to know if you remember that you are one. Sam folded the letter carefully. I'll take it to Lord Commander Jeor Mormont, he said. He'll send a reply. You know he will. He never turns down the offer of grain or men. Jon nodded. But his mind was already elsewhere, racing ahead. Dorne, Oberyn Martell. A hand extended, however obliquely, across half a continent of war. Ghost nudged his hand with a cold nose. Jon curled his fingers into thick white fur, grounding himself. Far south, a prince of Dorne sat under orange trees and thought of wolves. Here, on the edge of the world, a wolf in black stared south and thought of sand. The wall loomed around them, vast and uncaring. Somewhere beyond it, the dead moved in the dark, indifferent to letters and alliances. But men had to start somewhere. Snow lay in patchy drifts along the Eyrie's inner courtyards, stubborn pockets of white that clung to shade even as spring crept northward. The air was thin and cold, each breath a small labor. Clouds drifted below them, turning the world beyond the mountain's edge into a sea of shifting gray. Petyr Baelish, Lord Protector of the Vale, stood on a narrow balcony overlooking that false ocean, his fingers playing with the seal of a letter he had just broken. The wax, once imprinted with a sun and spear, now lay in two neat halves on his palm, its shards catching the pale light. Behind him, Sansa Stark. No, Alayne Stone, she reminded herself, always Alayne, stood with her hands tucked into the fur lining of her cloak. Her hair was dyed a dark auburn now, the vivid Tully red dimmed to something less conspicuous. She had learned to stand quietly, to take up as little space as possible, to let men forget she was there until they said things they should not say in front of young girls. Petyr never forgot she was there. He counted on it. Dorne writes, he said lightly, eyes flicking over the script. How unexpected, or perhaps not. The world is full of men who believe themselves more clever than they are. Princes are particularly prone to the condition. Alayne shifted. Is it about the war? She asked. Her voice was soft, careful. She had learned to keep the northern bite from it. In a fashion, Petyr said. Everything is, these days. Even letters that pretend otherwise. He turned, leaning back against the balustrade, the letter held between two fingers. His smile was easy, practiced, a familiar mask. Prince Oberyn Nymeros Martell of Dorne writes to me, he said, to praise my humility and my flexibility. Very flattering. He suggests that Dorne remembers its old ties with the Stormlands and the North, and wonders if the Vale might be persuaded to remember some ties of its own. Alayne's heart gave a small, treacherous leap. The North, she repeated. He mentions whispers of a certain girl who vanished from King's Landing, Petyr said. His eyes gleamed with amusement. A girl he suspects might have flown to a higher perch. A walled garden, perhaps, or a lofty eyrie. He waved the letter. He asks, ever so politely, whether I know where this bird has nested. The balcony seemed to tilt under Alayne's feet. She gripped the stone rail behind her, fingers numb. What will you tell him? She asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. Petyr stepped toward her. He moved like a cat, smooth and unhurried, as if he owned not just the stones underfoot but the air itself. What do you think I should tell him, my sweet Alayne Stone? He asked. She knew what he wanted. A test, always a test. He had opened his mouth the day he killed Lisa Arryn and poured a serpent into her ear, telling her she must be as slippery, as subtle, as he was if she hoped to survive. She had listened. She had learned. You should tell him nothing, she said quietly. Or near enough. You should not admit that I am here. Dorne may hate the Lannisters, but they are still part of the realm. If word spreads that I live, she could not finish. Heads on spikes, her father's eyes meeting hers one last time. The sound of the sword. Petyr's smile widened by a fraction. Very good, he said. I will not tell Prince Oberyn Martell that I keep a wolf pup in my mountain cage. That would be unwise. But neither will I slam the door in his face. Men like that, when rebuffed too harshly, become creative. He turned the letter over in his hands. No, he mused. I will hint. I will suggest that the bird he seeks has indeed flown this way in the past. That she may have left again. That there are, shall we say, possibilities. And I will ask in return, what does Dorne truly want with a Stark girl? Vengeance? Alliance? Leverage? Alayne swallowed. And if he says alliance? She asked. Then we will see, Petyr said. The north is flayed and gutted, but it still has bones. The Vale has untouched swords and full granaries. Dorne has heat and grudges. A clever man might knit those together into something profitable. Profitable. He said it the way other men said righteous. What do you want? Alayne asked before she could stop herself. He looked at her, his eyes softening in a way that was more dangerous than any sharpness. I want you safe, he said. I want the North in your hands one day, as it should have been. I want to see Cersei Lannister howl when she realizes the girl she thought a lamb has grown teeth. His fingers brushed a lock of her darkened hair back from her cheek. She forced herself not to flinch. Perhaps Dorne might help with that, he went on. A wolf in the snow is one thing. A wolf with Sunspear friends is another. She thought of Robb, crowned in the north, of how quickly the world had crushed him. She thought of Winterfell's gray stones, burned, of the Boltons in their place. Will you write back? She asked. Of course, he said. We cannot ignore such a courteous invitation. Besides, I am curious. Oberyn Martell has made a splash in King's Landing, if half the stories are true. A man who can cripple Tywin Lannister's reputation in a single duel is a man to watch. Perhaps even a man to assist. He flicked the letter once more, then tucked it into his sleeve. Come, he said. Lysa's son must be coaxed from his bed, and you are the only one he will listen to. I will compose a reply later. As they turned to go, Alayne cast one last glance at the sea of clouds below, at the distant line of the horizon where she imagined the south lay. Dorne. She had heard stories, as all children did, of burning sands and proud princes and a princess murdered by a monster in armor. Now one of those princes had written a letter that brushed against her life. The world below the Vale was shifting. She could feel it, even this high up. Somewhere, a man in the sun was thinking of wolves. Somewhere, a man in the snow was reading words from sand. She was not Sansa Stark in this story, only Alayne Stone. But Sansa Stark had not died at the Blackwater. She had only gone to ground. Wolves emerged from burrows when winter broke. Perhaps one day when the snows melted and the game boards reset, she would too. Dawn came to Sunspear not as a gentle thing, but as a sudden decision. One moment the world was gray. The next the sun leapt over the horizon and smeared gold across the sky, lighting the towers and rooftops in quick succession. The air was cool for perhaps half an hour, if one was charitable, before the heat began its daily climb. In that brief window, the training yard filled. Obara Sand was already there when Oberyn arrived, her hair bound back, her arms bare. She rolled her shoulders, muscles bunching under sun-browned skin, and grinned when she saw him. Old man, she called. Come to see if you remember which end of a spear is which? My side aches, not my wits, Oberyn said. Though we shall see if you can tell the difference between a lesson and a beating. He shrugged off his robe, leaving only a light linen shirt and breeches. The scar along his ribs was an angry line now, but the stitches had come out, and the flesh beneath had knitted well. It pulled when he moved too quickly, a warning but not a chain. He took a wooden spear from the rack, testing its weight. It was heavier than his favored spear, the balance blunter, but for practice it would do. He spun it once, feeling the old rhythms return, the way his body remembered even when his mind doubted. On the far side of the yard, Elia Martell and Myrcella Baratheon sat on a low wall, feet dangling. A jug of cool water sweated beside them. Myrcella shielded her eyes with one hand, watching with open curiosity. Doran Martell had claimed a patch of shade beneath an overhanging balcony. his chair positioned where he could see the whole yard. Tywin Sand stood behind him, a parasol in hand, though whether it was to keep the sun off his face or to conceal his reactions from prying eyes was debatable. "Begin," Doran said, voice mild. Obara came at Oberyn in a blur of motion, her spear thrusting for his throat. He swayed aside, letting the wooden tip pass within a finger's width, then brought his own spear up in a quick parry, redirecting her momentum. She spun with it, driving a shoulder into his chest. Pain flared in his ribs. "Still reckless," he grunted. "Still slow?" She shot back, already turning, spear sweeping low for his knees. He jumped, landed, winced. The yard's packed sand shifted underfoot, forgiving and treacherous at once. He shifted his grip, spear a spinning blur, and pressed her back. They moved in a small circle, never straying too close to the watching wall, each seeking a gap in the other's guard. Myrcella leaned forward, eyes wide. "He's still hurt," she whispered to Arianne. "Should he be doing that?" "It would take more than a cut to keep Oberyn Martell from a spear," Arianne said. "Besides, Obara Sand would go mad if she could not test herself against him. This is more for her than for him." In the yard, Obara feinted left, then lunged right. Oberyn let the feint draw his guard up, then snapped his spear down in a quick strike to her exposed midsection. The wood thudded against her ribs, not full force, but enough to knock the breath from her. She staggered, then laughed, the sound breathless. "Cheap," she said, "distracting me with your stubborn old man grunts." "War is cheap," Oberyn said. He stepped back, letting her recover. "There is no honor in letting a man adjust his grip." She rolled her shoulders, then came at him again. Sweat slicked their skin. The first blush of heat rose off the sand. Around them, other fighters practiced with swords and daggers, but the center of gravity in the yard remained where the prince and his daughter danced. "Do you mean to fight in the north, father?" Obara panted between strikes. "With your spears in snow? If the north is worth fighting for," Oberyn said, their weapons clacking together in a staccato rhythm, "then the spears will follow where I lead. Snow dulls blades," she said, "and cold stiffens fingers." "Then we will learn to fight differently," he replied, "or we will bring our own heat." He stepped sideways, deliberately letting her rush past him, then rapped the back of her knee with the butt of his spear. She dropped, cursing, then rolled, sweeping his legs. The world tilted. He hit the sand with a grunt, breath whooshing from his lungs. Pain flared white-hot along his side. For a heartbeat, the yard vanished, replaced by the trial field, by the looming shadow of Gregor Clegane and the taste of dust and blood in his mouth. "Oberyn," Ellaria's voice echoed in his memory. "Half a world and a lifetime ago. Breathe." He did. The moment passed. He lay on his back, sand cool against his spine, and looked up at his daughter's grinning face. She offered him a hand. He took it and let her haul him upright. "Better," he said, shaking sand from his hair. "Your footwork has improved." "I had a good teacher once," she said, "when he wasn't too busy chasing skirts." Myrcella laughed from the wall, the sound surprising herself. Arianne glanced at her, then winked. Doran's voice carried across the yard. "Enough for the morning," he said. "The sun climbs. I would not have my brother collapse again simply to prove a point." Obara wiped sweat from her brow with the back of her wrist and bowed, spear across her chest. Oberyn returned the gesture, then turned toward the wall. "You fight differently than the knights in King's Landing," Myrcella said as he approached. "They smash into each other. You dance." "Smashing is for men in tin cans," Oberyn said. "I prefer to move." "I could never do that," she said. "I'd fall on my face." "You say that about everything you have not yet tried," Arianne said. "And yet I have seen you ride, and swim, and throw a knife at a melon without hitting your own foot." Myrcella flushed. "That was an accident," she muttered. "Most useful skills begin as accidents," Oberyn said. He saw the longing in her eyes before she suppressed it. A flash of yearning when she watched Obara move, spear a lethal extends. Ion of her will. In the capital, princesses were not expected to fight. Here, they were expected to survive. "Would you learn?" he asked. She blinked. "Learn what?" "To dance without smashing," he said. He raised the wooden spear, then lowered it again. "Not with this, not yet. A staff first. Or a knife, something that teaches you balance. Unless your septa has convinced you that a lady's hands must stay soft forever." She bit her lip, glancing toward the shade where Doran watched. "Septa Eglantine says a princess's duty is to pray and advise," she said. "She says swords are for men. And look how well that has turned out for the realm," Oberyn said dryly. "Princes marching to their deaths, kings choking at feasts. I suspect the gods are tired of prayers from pretty mouths." Arianne laughed. "If you want to learn, Myrcella Baratheon," she said, "come to the yard at dawn, and we will put a broomstick in your hands. Septa Eglantine need never know." Myrcella hesitated for one heartbeat, two. Then she lifted her chin. "I will come," she said. Doran watched his brother's face, then Myrcella's, and said nothing. But when Oberyn glanced his way, the older man's eyes held a glint of something that might have been approval or resignation. "You are weaving webs again," Doran murmured as Oberyn came to sit briefly in his shade. "Teaching a lion's cub to hold a spear." "I am giving her teeth," Oberyn said. "The world will put her in men's games whether she wills it or no. Better she knows how to bite." "And when you go north?" Doran asked. "What of her then?" "Then she will have you," Oberyn said, "and Arianne Martell, and my daughters, and, perhaps by then, a few small skills of her own." He looked up at the sky, where the sun had cleared the horizon fully now, its heat already pressing down. Somewhere above, ravens flew, their black wings cutting across blue. "I will not be gone forever," he said, "but I must go. The next moves are not here." Doran followed his gaze. "Sand and snow," he said softly. "Very well, brother. Go find us a wolf worth trusting. Bring him back a reason to trust us in return." The night before he left, Sunspear seemed to hold its breath. The day's heat had finally bled from the stones, leaving them warm rather than scorching. A breeze whispered off the narrow sea, carrying with it the faint cries of gulls and the rhythmic hush of waves on sand. Above, the stars spread themselves in their thousands, sharp and clear, unmarred by the smoke that veiled other cities. On a narrow balcony outside his chamber, Oberyn Martell stood with his hands on the low wall, looking north. It was a foolish habit. He could not see the north from here, only the dark outline of the red mountains against the sky, and beyond them the vast, unseen sweep of the desert. And beyond that, hundreds of leagues, a burned castle, a flayed man's banner, a wall of ice. He was dressed for travel. Soft leather boots, a long tunic in a muted orange, a cloak lined with something warmer than silk. Dorne's nights could bite in the foothills, and the further north he went, the more he would need to remember what snow felt like on his skin. Behind him, a pair of saddlebags leaned against the wall, already packed with spare clothes, dried fruit, hard cheese, a skin of Dornish red, vials of poison carefully stoppered and wrapped. His spear rested beside them, its dark wood catching the starlight, its point capped for the journey. Ellaria Sand joined him without ceremony, sliding an arm around his waist and resting her head against his shoulder. She wore a thin robe against the warmth of the night, her hair unbound, her feet bare on the stone. "You look like a man about to run away with a lover," she said. "Not one about to ride into snow and strangers." "Snow can be a lover," he said, "if you know how to touch it." "I do not share," she replied. "Not with ice." He laughed, low. "I will be back," he said, "soon enough to annoy you again." She was silent a moment, her breath slow against his side. "You could send someone else," she said quietly. "Arianne Martell, perhaps, or Quentyn Martell, when he returns from his own folly. A sand snake, a merchant, "Why must it be you?" "Because I have seen the north once already," he said. "Because I have looked into Jon Snow's eyes and seen something that does not fit neatly in the songs men tell about bastards and lords. Because I killed Gregor Clegane in their capital, and that ties me to this realm's old crimes whether I like it or not." He turned to face her, resting his hands on her hips. "Because if I ask men to risk war alongside me one day, I should be willing to ride the hard roads myself." "You ask many things in that because," she said. "I do," he agreed. "We live in a time when many things must be asked." She studied his face in the starlight, tracing the lines at the corners of his eyes with her gaze. "Do you intend to bring this Jon Snow back with you?" she asked. "Drag him south by the scruff like a wayward pup?" "He has vows," Oberyn said. "Heavy ones. I will not be the one to break them for him. But if he is what I suspect, the world will break them soon enough, whether he wishes it or not. I would rather he had friends waiting when that happens." "Friends," she said. "Is that what we are?" "We are many things," he said. "For him, perhaps, we might begin as that." She rested her forehead against his chest. "You will be careful," she said. It was not a question. "I will be as careful as I can," he replied. "And as reckless as I must." "Typical," she muttered. "You have a habit of coming home with new scars. Do not bring back anything worse this time." He thought of the stories Samwell Tarly had told at the wall, of white walkers and blue eyes, of a sword of fire in a dead man's hand. He thought of dragons rumored overseas, of a queen with eyes like polished amethyst. "I cannot promise that," he said. "The world is more dangerous now than when I first picked up a spear, but I can promise I will aim its dangers at the men who deserve them." She pulled back enough to look him in the eye. "And Myrcella Baratheon?" she asked. "You leave her with a promise and a half-learned guard stance. Is that enough?" "It has to be," he said. "She will not be alone. Doran Martell will see to her. Eyrie Martell will keep her close. The sand snakes will treat her as a curiosity at first, and then, if she proves worthy, as a comrade. And if she is the girl I think she is becoming, she will make of this place a home, not just a prison." Ellaria's mouth curved. "Do you care for her?" she asked. "Truly?" "Yes," he said, surprised by the steadiness of his own answer. "Not as I cared for Elia. That hole does not close. But as some small compensation to the world. A lion's child raised in a place where her mother's worst sins cannot reach her, where she might learn to be better than the blood that sired her." "She is a thread you mean to tie between Dorne and the North," Ellaria said. "She is," he admitted. "A princess who might one day speak for both." "And you?" she asked. "What will you be in this tapestry you weave?" He smiled, tired and amused all at once. "The man who knotted the first threads, perhaps," he said. "Or the fool whose blood stained the loom. Time will decide." She kissed him once, fierce and lingering. "Come back," she said again. "I do not care in what position. Walking, crawling, carried on a litter. Just do it breathing." "I will do my best to accommodate your preferences," he said. In the courtyard below, a stable boy led out a string of horses, their coats gleaming even in the dim light, their breath steaming faintly. The road north glimmered beyond the outer gate, a pale ribbon under the stars, winding toward the foothills and then beyond, where Oberyn's memories of cold and stone took over from imagination. He picked up his spear, feeling its familiar weight settle into his palm. His ribs twinged, a reminder of a mountain slain and a yard full of witnesses. Sand and snow, he thought, viper and wolf, lion's cub in D, Ornish pools. The past was carved in blood already. The future was still soft enough to shape. "Time to ride," he said. Ellaria did not cling. She was not made for clinging. She simply nodded and stepped back, wrapping her robe tighter around herself as the night breeze picked up. He took one last look at the stars over the red mountains, then turned his back on them and walked inside, down toward the waiting horses, the waiting road, and the waiting north.